That's how it is, I guess, now.
Sick.
Alright. Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Hello.
Can you see me, David? On the thing? Can you see all of us?
I think so.
Yeah, we can see it. Can't see you very well.
Get this going. Alright. Step back right there.
Ben, can you see me now?
Yeah, you can see it.
I'm the style, obviously, so.
Yeah, your name is definitely in the title.
It is! My middle initials are DJ, so DJ.
Alright. As soon as it hits 5 o'clock.
It is 5.
This is WKNH 91.3, and it is time for probably one of the best shows to hit the airwaves. Yes, it is time for As the Reel Turns.
I've missed this.
Theme. I was scrolling through news themes and I found this one that we could use for the entertainment update. So.
I'm not going to be getting this stuff from TMZ, I think. One of those celebrity tabloid.
Yes, indeed. Hooray for Hollywood. I am Daniel, and I am back on As the Reel Turns, back here on WKNH, and it is so cool to be finally back on the air. So, before we get started, I want to actually introduce something brand new to the circuit. First of all, I'd like to say hello to my professor, who is giving me some credit for this, for media production, so thanks so much for that. And we're going to be actually doing something brand new. We're going to be doing a quick segment before we get into the show, where I'm going to give you a quick update on some form of entertainment, which I think would work as a great name. Let's call this, It's Time for an Entertainment Update. So yes, it is time for an entertainment update where we give you a very quick update on one of your favorite shows and or movies. And so what we're going to be talking about today is a show from the 90s, a sitcom that a lot of people liked and had a lot of crossovers with other shows on the channel of NBC. And that is a show called Mad About You. Yes, Mad About You, starring Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt. And the show is going to be coming back for a limited season of 12 episodes on Spectrum Originals. And so that is a great idea, I think. It's nice to see these characters back from the while they've been gone. And, you know, I actually want to get some other opinions here, so I'm going to give it to some quick guests who I will give the names right after we do this update here. So, guest one, what are your thoughts on bringing back Mad About You?
I'm excited about it. I personally never watched the show myself, but I've heard a lot of great things, and I'm probably going to be tuning into that when it comes out.
All right, guest number two. What do you think about that?
I think it's great. I love Paul. I know Paul Reiser wanted to do a revival for a long time, and now he finally gets his wish.
And
I like Paul Reiser too. So
absolutely. And guest number three. What do you think about this?
I love it when we get more exclusives than we already have on networks that most people probably don't subscribe to.
Fair enough, fair enough. Okay, so now you're probably wondering who these random people are. Well, of course, some of them are familiar faces and one is not a familiar face. So, right next to me we have the guy who brings everything up to 10. It is Ben. Hello, Ben.
Hello, everyone.
Ben 10, really.
Ben.
Diagonally from me we have the guy who's always chillin'. It's Dylan.
It's cringy, Daniel. Really cringy.
Oh, yeah. And don't call him Spacey because he's Casey. Welcome, Casey, to the show.
Konnichiwa, fellow otaku.
There you go.
Hi.
All right. So, guys, welcome back to the show, and welcome to the show. If you've never heard us before, what we're going to talk about is, the show is called As the Reel Turns. We talk about all things movie and television. And today we're going to be kicking it off with something I think should be called this, because once you hear the description, it will make sense. We're going to be talking about something called time capsule shows today. What that means is we're going to be talking about shows that have been set in a different time that they were filmed. So, for example, if something was set in the 50s and it was filmed in the 70s, then that's fair game. The other thing that we're going to talk about is that if you're thinking about, like, if that includes all things historical and all things historical fiction, well, that's going to be a later show in the year. So we're going to stay right in the 20th century for this lineup of shows. And the first one we're going to talk about is something that, personally, I'm going to be honest, I actually fell asleep during the opening credits. But that doesn't mean that this show is not popular, because it ended its 6th season run a couple years ago, and right now, in a couple days, it's going to be getting a big screen movie. So congratulations to them. What we're going to be talking about first is the show called, I like to call it Downtown Shabby, but of course it's also known as Downton Abbey. We'll be right back real quick.
I went to high school in Lancaster, which is not far from Palmdale. Is it very good?
Forget about it.
All right, we are back. And so, Downton Abbey, yes. Downton Abbey has been a big success, I think, lately. It certainly got a lot of fans and a lot of people watching PBS. Have you guys ever seen this show, or do you know what it's about? Ben, we'll start with you.
I've got to be honest with you, Daniel. I have no idea about anything with the show. I'm total blanking here. Never seen it, heard of it.
Well, I appreciate your honesty. Casey, let's go to you, our new person here. What are your thoughts on Downtown Shabby?
Well, I've also never seen it. However, it was featured as part of an episode of Community with some sort of, like, parody. I think it was Cougar Town Abbey, and well, that got me interested enough to at least look into it. So that's about where I stand.
Okay, and Dylan.
I've only heard about it in passing. Actually, more so the parodies. I believe Arthur did a parody, and they called it Fountain Abbey. Does it have Maggie Smith in it?
It does have Maggie Smith.
That's really all I know.
The one reason I keep calling it Downtown Shabby is because that actually was another show. It was one of those home fix-it-up shows, and they parodied their name from Downton Abbey.
Did you say this takes place in the 20s?
This does take place in the 20s.
It's period. I know it's not really, but that's kind of a period.
It is a bit of a period piece.
That's not where I fall. Yeah, no.
It starts in the 19-teens and then goes up to about 1920.
Yeah, according to this website I'm reading, it says that it's set from 1912 to 1925, with the movie taking place in 1927.
Well, then that's a good idea.
Is it coming back? I mean, did you say it ended its 6th season and now it's the movie?
It ended a 6-season run and now they're going to make a movie.
And this is the finale.
This is kind of, well, they had a finale, but this is just like,
the grand finale.
The grand finale, yeah.
Yeah, it says it's going to involve stuff with the royal household, so that's pretty grand.
British.
It is very British. It's PBS. And basically, the idea is that it's the look on two different lives in this giant household: the society, normal rich members, and then the servants and the helpers. And if you know like another British show out there, Upstairs, Downstairs, it kind of has a similar premise of seeing the two sides of the spectrum here. But I know that it's a huge thing, and I think that I'm happy that they're getting a big movie, which is nice, because if you have something that I think does a good job and gets a lot of fans, you do make a big screen movie for it. So that was for definitely my parents who are in love with this show, and so I had to start there somewhere. And I maybe
Big shout out to your family.
I may have to give it a second chance.
Just a fun fact. Apparently, Queen Elizabeth II is a big fan of the show.
Well, then there you go. It definitely has royal approval. Then, so as you can see, we're going to be going hopefully by decades here, and we're going to kick it off now back into the 30s. And this is probably the show I know the least about because I know it existed. I actually originally lived on this named street back when I lived in New Jersey, but I don't know too much about it. This is a show called The Waltons. Oh, now I recognize this thing.
I might have heard of this. I don't know anything about this show. I've never even heard of this show.
So yes, the Waltons. This takes place around the 1930s, Great Depression, and if I know this correctly, it originally started out as a Christmas special TV movie. If I'm guessing this correctly, and the running thing about this show that I do know is that they would constantly say goodnight to each other. You'd see the lights go out in the household. And the thing that you would constantly hear repeatedly is "Goodnight, John Boy," which was one of the names of the kids in the show.
You were correct. It was originally made as a Christmas special. However, most of the cast was recast.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
So it's a spin-off of a TV movie?
I suppose you could call it that.
In
yeah.
a way, yes, I would say that. Given the information that you just heard, the very vague information, I will admit to that. Does this sound like something you would be watching, or does it sound like something that you'd skip?
Honestly, I would probably try watching a couple episodes. I would obviously try. I mean, don't knock it till you try it, right?
Right.
But I have to say, honestly, it would probably not be something I would be very interested in, but I would try.
You never know. You never know, right?
I'd have to skip it. I mean, it's a drama, and there's too many dramas out there. And I mean,
What could you ever mean? Drama.
drama queen. But when I watch TV, I want sitcoms. I want the entertaining stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't know, just slice of life. It sounds like a slice of life, and I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Actually, Daniel, I've never even heard of the show until you mentioned it. So
Surprise.
I feel like if it were made today, like I would watch maybe a season of it and see what I got for a taste of it, because I do kind of like slice of life stories. I like to be in another world with the characters, but I don't really know. Like, I give it a shot at least.
Well, like we did with the entertainment update there, everything is coming back, or everything's getting a reboot or a sequel, which I think also will be another show, because there are so many of them nowadays that we can have a whole show about them. So
and streaming services.
it's streaming services.
It allows
Originals on everything.
Yeah, but it also allows like shows that have gotten canceled to come back because they don't have a time slot.
Community.
You just watch it.
You good there over there?
Yeah, I'm good.
You good? Okay.
Like, did you say Mad About You's? What's it on?
It was originally on NBC.
No,
but,
but what's it on
Spectrum Originals.
I'm guessing that's another streaming service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like a TV service, but of course they have their own streaming service. So.
Well, I mean, they brought back Roseanne.
Roseanne, yeah.
Roseanne, and now it's something else.
The Connors.
The Connors,
Because Roseanne herself.
But I mean
is gone.
that.
Yeah.
But that came back.
That
so,
came back.
Why
You're
can't-
absolutely
why can't
right.
This come back.
You're right, and there's a whole, like I said, there's a whole list of them that can come back, which means that we could definitely fill a show about it. So that's something to think about when we do another episode. So going right along here, there's now we're getting to the stuff. Those two shows, I will admit I'm a little unfamiliar with, but this next one, now that we're going into the 1940s type of era, this one I definitely know a lot about because I have seen this show. I like this show, and it's a comedy for Dylan. So this, of course, well, let's just see if you can guess what it is at home when you hear the theme song. Alright, that should be a gimme for people who like classic television like me. That, of course, is the theme to the Army World War II sitcom Hogan's Heroes. Now, you think about it for just a split second here. You take World War II. This is one of those times where the sequel is a lot better than the original, I think, World War I, World War II. But you take both were very serious, and World War II was certainly serious with all the Nazis and stuff like that. But if you take something as serious as World War II, you think you can never make it funny. And yet, this show made it funny. If you don't know the idea of this show, it is about a bunch of POWs, prisoners of war, stuck in a Nazi prison camp. And basically, hilarity ensues because the POWs kind of, I wouldn't say make friends, but make agreements with the enemy soldiers, and they work together sometimes, and they always have their ways of getting escapes, and they have like built-in gadgets in their building, and so it's always something interesting to see, because how are they going to do that, or how are they going to escape this time, or how are they going to work this around? And it's just a really funny show. And in that theme song, this is one of those songs where you hear it on TV, you hear it just the way you heard it right now, but it has lyrics. It does have lyrics, and in both this and the lyric version, the drums you hear right there throughout the song, those are played by the main star, Bob Crane, who does play Colonel Hogan himself. So let's start with Dylan. Dylan, have you heard of this show?
Yes, I have. Did they make a movie for this too?
That I'm unfamiliar with. I'm going to say no, but I can't confirm that.
It's been a while. I might have seen a few episodes in passing.
It does not seem like they made a movie out of it.
I didn't think so.
Yeah, I figured. I don't know, but I mean, I might have seen an episode in passing. This is probably something more my parents liked.
Right.
What I like about it, though, is it's a military. It's a military comedy.
Right.
You know, you don't really get that. Going off track here, a few years ago, there was a show called Enlisted, Modern Times, but it featured three brothers in the army, but it was a comedy. And now, you know, you get all these military dramas like SEAL Team and what else?
Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
The Pacific.
Right.
Jack Ryan. But a comedy, and as you were saying, Daniel, it's the Allies versus the Axis, but put that together, you can make a comedy because it's clash of cultures, clash of beliefs.
Right.
I mean, normally it's drama, but you can get comedy out of that. Nothing is off limits for comedy, in my opinion.
Right.
So.
And I mean, the show was made in the 1960s, and in the 1960s, if you remember from our last year, one of our big success episodes was a spy-themed show, a show that just, you know, everything sprouted from James Bond, kind of. And this kind of fits in there.
And also, give a lot of credit, from the 60s, people are still reeling from the Nazis.
Oh, yeah.
They're still recovering, so them able to do this, that shows how well written it kind of was. I've never personally seen an episode, I don't think, but...
Something that I find very important, especially about like big traumatic events, is that we give it some time to cool, and then we sort of start to laugh at them to make it easier to cope with, even the people who are seriously traumatized with it. The best example in recent memory I can think of would be the 5th season South Park episode where they fight Osama bin Laden. From what I understand, people who, you know, weren't 3 when it happened definitely needed that, and this seems along the same vein, like you were saying.
Yeah, and also, going back to World War II, Mel Brooks himself, master of comedy and parody, that's what his goal is, to reduce, something as dark as the Nazis in World War II to a laughing stock, so no one can take them seriously anymore.
That's right. That's right.
But a show like this, though, it just, as I say, give it a lot of credit for doing that at that time. Nowadays, I mean, come on, you got South Park and Family Guy, but at that time, it was good.
I've only seen a couple episodes. It was a long time ago, so I don't really remember much of them. But I have seen a lot of the show MASH, and I see a lot of parallels between these two shows.
Yeah, this was kind of it. This was like one of the first funny war shows. I mean, you got other stuff like F Troop was kind of in there as well. But there is certainly an aspect of funniness in this show, because also the head commandant of the camp was German, and he said, I don't want to do this role unless it is a comedy. And so that's why he agreed to do the show, because it makes the Nazis look like idiots.
Did he ham it up?
Oh yeah, big time. Speaking of hamming it up, is kind of his, I'll call him his second in charge, because it's kind of the other main soldier we see is Sergeant Schultz, who constantly reminds everyone watching the show that he knows nothing, because the POWs kind of grab him into their little schemes sometimes, little missions and plans, and he always ends up being yelled at by the Commandant, Colonel Klink. The other thing about this show, like I said, with
that's comedy right there.
Oh yeah, with Bob Crane doing the drums in this theme song. Again, we connect back to Mad About You, because Mad About You also had one of the show's stars providing music for that theme song as well, and that was Paul Reiser himself. You hear you hear the Mad About You theme song, and that is actually Paul Reiser playing the piano in that song. So it's kind of, yeah, there you go, yeah. So that's kind of an interesting thing, and it's always fun to see those connections between that and the other that and the show itself.
And it's always fun when you see the actors playing like an instrument or being the ones actually singing.
Exactly,
because it shows off their talent.
Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to play a quick public service announcement, and then we'll be right back, and we're going to jump right into the 1950s, and when we do that, we're going to have something fun right in the middle of the 50s. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. And in fact, as we play out, let's hear Paul Reiser's rendition of that classic theme song for Mad About You, otherwise known as The Final Frontier.
Is that him singing?
Sounds like
I know a lot of these actors are musicians too.
It comes with the territory of being theater trained at first.
Yeah. Yeah, that theme's different.
I'd like to report a bear hug. I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again. You felt that it was
I love
cold.
this man's voice.
Yeah, he's just letting me know you did good.
Bear hug from
What
Smokey
about
Bear.
you?
Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now.
Underdog.
There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out.
From Emperor's New
Learn how
Groove.
you can
I
do
think
your
so. I'm
part.
looking this up.
SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
He was in the Get Smart movie that they
Yeah.
made.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days. The
Yeah.
weekend comes, my cycle hums, ready to race to you. These days are ours. These days are ours. Share them with me. Blue like gray sky, yellow blue. This moon can hold me when I hold you.
The Fonz. Chachi.
Alright, so yeah, it's pretty obvious what we're talking about next. So, quickly before we jump into the 50s, I want to also mention that there was another great 40s era themed show out there. Agent Carter, very short-lived, part of the MCU there.
I
Very
believe,
short-lived.
though, she's Haley Atwell is still doing some stuff with Agent.
Well, that's good. They definitely should bring back the show.
Yeah, she's actually playing the role once again in one of their upcoming What Ifs, where she gets to be the one with the shield.
That's
Oh,
right, that's
very
right.
good.
Yeah.
Very good.
I've seen that.
So definitely check out that show. Very short-lived, very criminally canceled. So now we're on to the 50s, and yes, of course, we're going to talk about probably the biggest, nostalgia time capsule show, or at least one of the biggest ones out there. Happy Days, yes, which spanned the length of a good part of the 70s, and it starred a grown-up Opie Taylor from the Andy Griffith Show, Ron Howard, but now achieved director, award-winning,
Yeah.
Two Academy
Award
and
winning,
still directing,
Yeah.
Ron Howard.
Very good.
and his daughter too.
Absolutely.
Very talented.
And then,
man.
also, of course, one of the other big stars of the show is, of course, Mr. Henry Winkler, otherwise known as Fonzarelli, but simply known as the Fonz. There we go, yes. A role that, frankly, I don't think he can ever escape from.
Have you seen Arrested Development?
Can't say I have. Happy Days, yes, there's a lot of great moments in this show. One known fact about the show is that the famous theme that you just heard, was not their original theme. For I believe at least just the first season, it was the song "Rock Around the Clock," and
No, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
yeah, "Rock Around the Clock."
Who was a DJ in Keene? Fun fact.
There you go. There you go. And of course, there are so many memorable moments in this, from Arnold's drive-in diner to, of course, the memorable moment that almost killed the show, Fonzie jumping the shark, which is where we get the iconic reference to when a show goes a little over their limit and does something that really is unexpected and really doesn't make any sense, and the rest of the show that follows, any other seasons or episodes, are not as good.
Trope alert. It's a trope. Jumping the shark.
So I'm going to throw it over to Dylan first. Dylan, thoughts, opinions, and what have you seen of Happy Days?
Yell at me, but I haven't watched this series.
Boo!
However, I do know about it. It's really good. Come on, the Fonz.
Absolutely.
And just how many references the show is, like, how influential it's made. I mean, there's references in Pulp Fiction. Samuel L. Jackson says, we're all going to be little Fonzies here. Direct quote. Come on, and how many spin-offs there are. Let's get into that.
We'll get to the
later.
spin-offs.
Just, I don't know. I haven't really seen it, but I heard it's good.
Ben, thoughts?
I've seen the first couple seasons of the show. Very good. Obviously, like Dylan said, it spans like the entire range of television from when it started to now.
How many spin-offs? How many seasons?
That I'm actually not familiar with. I know that at least
Casey's on
I'm
it.
going to say like maybe 7.
Casey's on the
8,
case.
at least.
Yeah, I'm looking up how many seasons there are right now.
The one thing I do want to say, yes, Dylan has brought up that this show is one of those shows that have had 1,000 spin-offs.
Talk about jumping the shark.
11 seasons, actually. And, that just shows you that this is one of those shows that lasted a long time. It was popular, it was big, and people loved this show.
And as I said, influential.
Influential.
Everyone knows about it. It's one of, if not the most famous television show.
Yeah.
I would say.
And so that was probably one of, again, like I said, one of the biggest nostalgia shows, one of the biggest shows. It originated in a movie called American Graffiti,
Yep.
and it also fun fact.
So it's a spin-off of a movie.
kind of
Wow. So we're angry at all the spin-offs, and yet it
itself is kind of a
Yeah.
spin-off, but
a good spin-off at least.
a fun fact, if you've watched Henry Winkler on another short-lived show called Better Late Than Never, highly recommend it, he admits that he actually never rode a motorcycle. I mean, he rode it maybe like 2 feet just to get into a scene, but that he never, ever rode a motorcycle.
It's okay, I don't know how to drive a motorcycle either, so...
Well,
You're not
luckily,
the Fonz.
thankfully for all of us, I know how to drive a Batmobile. So, anyway,
Foily.
that is not the only 50s show that was huge, lasted 11 seasons, and that people tuned in to watch week after week. Another big show was another war show, and Ben already mentioned it slightly earlier. It is, of course, the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital, simply known as MASH. You know you're watching MASH when you turn on the TV and you hear those helicopters going. So yes, MASH, huge show that spanned, again, 11 seasons. People tuned in week after week, and I think to this day, perhaps maybe still tied with Cheers, the most watched TV series finale. The final episode, Goodbye, Farewell, and Amen. If you've never seen it, first watch the show so you get the general idea. But when you get to a point where you're either ready or when you get to the actual finale, it is just you just sit there and watch it, because it's just it will take your breath away with how important it is, how moving it is. And
Do you need a box of tissues?
yeah, you will, because there are, for a comedy, there are some serious points in that, and throughout the show, because it is such an important time in history, because these soldiers are at war. They are 3 miles from the front lines in the Korean War, and because this was made in the 70s and early 80s, it was supposed to be a mimic of the Vietnam War. It was supposed to kind of mirror points that was going on in actual history. So it was definitely a fun show, but it was a serious show. And of course, it was branched off of the movie also called MASH, that was branched off from the book called MASH, a story about 3 doctors, I think that's what it's called. Personally, this is one of those times where the series came from a movie, which is already rare, but the series is better, because you get into more depth with these characters. You understand them better, while the movie was kind of silly and a little crude, which is definitely not.
So what? So what? It's the military.
Well, true. And I believe the only cast member from that show was to come from both movie and TV was Radar, and Radar was definitely a fun character, but I heard Gary Burkhoff was not the nicest of people to work with on set.
That is William Shatner. So.
Well, true. So I mean, let's kick it off with Casey. Casey, MASH. Thoughts on MASH?
This is a show that I saw like 10 episodes of one night with my mom, because it was on TV and she loved the show when she was a kid. And I was like, great, where can I go to watch it? And I found out it was not streaming anywhere. And it's just sort of the show that's emblematic of everything I love and hate about modern streaming platforms, that there's a show like MASH that I desperately need to watch that I can't find anywhere.
So what you're saying is you really want to watch it?
I really want to watch it.
Okay, then let me know and I'll bring my DVD collection.
I love you, Daniel.
Love you too. Ben, thoughts on MASH?
MASH, personally, is one of my favorite shows of all time. My parents showed it to me when I was probably a little bit too young to be watching the show, but I've loved it growing up, and I just really think it's such an iconic show for the time period, and just the theme song. Everyone knows the theme song, even if they haven't seen it. They're like, "Where have I heard that before?"
Exactly.
The theme song.
Exactly, and I mean this is one of those other situations where the theme song does have lyrics in the movie. The song is filled with lyrics. The song is called "Suicide is Painless," and you can actually hear the lyric version, and it's a haunting theme. It's a haunting theme, but it fits the show. Dylan, thoughts on Nash?
I absolutely hate the show, and I want something else. We want something else. We want something else. I'm just kidding. I've seen a
He's
few.
mimicking a scene, everybody.
I'm just kidding. You know, come on. I wouldn't be mimicking that scene, but I've only seen a few episodes, like Casey and Ben here, but I really liked it. Once again, I talked about the show Enlisted. Nash is a lot like Enlisted, just soldiers and their lives and the stuff they get into. And there's drama, there's comedy, and it's just, I really liked it, and I want to watch some more episodes.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do now is...
No, I don't hate it. It's a
Okay.
joke for all you sensitive people.
Okay. As long as you do not hate it, because if you do, I'm going to have to ask you.
Well, we want something else.
We do. It's a funny scene. It's a very fun show. Highly recommend it. Out of all the ones we talk about so far, I'd probably say that is probably number one that you should talk about.
Oh, and for all my friends in the military right now, I dare you in the chow hall to start doing that.
That'd be funny, actually. All right. So next we're going to jump into the 60s, and what we're going to actually do is we're going to start at the end of the 60s, going into the 70s, and then we'll backtrack. Okay. And we're going to talk about we're going to talk about personally one of my favorite shows ever, in the top 10 probably. We'll be right back with The Wonder Years. So don't go anywhere. Yeah, go ahead, Lenny.
I legitimately so badly want to watch Nash.
Nash is so good. I have a DVD collection at home. And whenever I'm home alone or I'll do some footage about Nash.
Yeah.
That or Seinfeld.
I wonder if it's actually been put
Ranger
on
Station,
anything.
Ranger speaking.
Hi. I'd like to report a bear.
Okay.
Well,
Daddy, too.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it. Drowned it again.
Yeah, the Nash to Hulu.
Oh yeah. He likes when people correctly put out their campfires. He's pretty big on wildfire prevention. He's just letting you know you did good with a hug. He's a hugger.
I just got a bear hug from Smokey Bear.
Yes.
Status update.
All right, I'm gonna
Not
let
something
you
that's
go.
around, but if you can just stream it if you have
A lot of
one.
major stuff. There are many ways to start a fire. One sure way to put it down. Learn how you can do your part. Smokey Bear.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Christy, sit next to me.
What would you do if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song. I will try not to sing out of key. Oh, baby, all I need is my love. I say I'm gonna get it.
All right, so we are back, and it is time to do some more talking about a show. And so what we're going to be talking about really quickly is that, first of all, before we get into it, I actually been reminded real quick. Sometimes there are things about shows that don't go as well. Sometimes there's a spin-off that doesn't go well, sometimes there's a show that is not really necessary, or sometimes they just make something that isn't really what anybody wanted.
They jumped the shark.
And I think there is only one man in the world who knows the most about telling us when something has gone wrong. Please welcome, first of all, I'd like to welcome live to us Mr. Christy. Christy, welcome to the show.
Hello!
And Christy, you have something to share with us, don't you?
I do. I certainly do, but I recorded it in advance because I didn't know if I'd be able to make it.
That is right. Do you know what time it is, everybody?
Hammer time?
That is incorrect, my friend. It is time for the first official rendition of something that I hope we get to continue every so often when we do this show. It is time for the first ever introduction of something that I think started with Curse of the Pink Panther.
Oh, it sure did.
All right, it's time for the first official Christy Rants.
Happy days. Happy days, happy days, happy days. What a great show. I love it to death. But why did Fonzie have to jump the shark at the beginning of season 5? It just ruined it. Why? And once Ron Howard left, they made it all about Fonzie, which was ridiculous. We like the mystery behind Fonzie. We don't want it all about him, When he's just this superhuman guy who just bangs his fist on something and then immediately starts working again, that's cool. We like to see that. That's what we want. And don't get me started on Joni Loves Chachi. Really? You made 2 great spin-off shows, and then you have to make one about 2 characters that nobody cares about? Literally, no one cares. We don't care about Joni and Chachi. We want to see Ralph, Richie, Fonzie, Potsy, all those guys. Mr. C. We want something else, We want something else. We want something else. Oh, and really, after MASH, MASH was great already by itself, but why did you have to make a sequel to it? It's ridiculous. It's like they failed with the Radar spinoff, which only lasted an episode. Oh, and Daniel, when it comes to the Wonder Years, I heard that you had a crush on Winnie. Want to tell us a little more about that? Huh? Daniel's got a crush.
All right. Christy, mind telling us why you included that little end bit?
Well,
It was funny.
It's not a well-kept secret, Daniel.
Well,
when a man loves a woman.
All right. So, okay, if anything, that serves as a nice segue to our next show. Yes, The Wonder Years was a show that took place in the late 60s, early 70s, and it starred Fred Savage, along with Dan Lauria, John Safino, and yes, Danica McKellar.
I'm sorry, did you say Dan Lauria?
Yes, Dan Lauria.
Yeah. That guy.
Yeah.
You know he's a Marine, too.
That makes sense.
He's a vet.
Oh, Danica McKellar. Oh, your true love.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone's in Law and Order, and Dan Lauria's episodes.
Everybody is in Law and Order.
And his episodes are really good. He's played bad guys. He's played good guys. Played a father who lost his daughter. I like him as an actor.
So the idea of the Wonder Years, it sets around Fred Savage's character Kevin Arnold and his life growing up in the late 60s, early 70s. And I actually have a book that says it's like these rules to live by sort of thing.
Oh no.
I'm flipping through it one day. No, I'm serious. Rule number 300 something was watch The Wonder Years. I kid you not.
You're not kidding.
This is
You're
serious.
not kidding.
This is serious. And so, because that, and my parents, or at least my mom said, you would like this show. I said, okay, fine, I'll watch it. I can definitely see why. Not only does, if you're a nostalgic type of person, not only does the setting, the clothes, the style get you, but the music, the lingo, you name it, they got it, pretty much. And yes, I will admit it. When I first saw this show, I did have a thing for her. Yes, I do. So there.
That is not a secret.
And it's just a really, really, really entertaining show. You heard the theme song when we came back there. That's the theme song by Joe Crocker, with a little help from my friends. Originally a Beatles song, and you just tune in week after week. You hear the voice of a grown-up Kevin Arnold, voiced by Daniel Stern, and basically you just hear Daniel Stern is inside Fred Savage's head, just rethinking everything that's happening and narrating a lot of the things that happen in the show. So Christy, since we'll start with you, since you just came in here, have you ever seen the show, and would you ever consider watching it?
I have not, but sure, I think about watching it. I know a recurring line a repeated line from Daniel Stern. I think he says, "And there you have it."
That is true. He says that a lot in the show. When something happens to Kevin, like something happens at school, when he dumps him again, and again and again and again, he says a lot of the time, "And there you had it," blah 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 blah. So you're absolutely right. But that's good to hear. And now, Dylan, thoughts on your?
I have not seen this, but I do know the guy sitting across from me in that weird polo shirt is a big fan of it. So, but I've seen a few clips, and I love all the actors: Daniel Stern, Dan Lauria, Fred Savage. So it's a show I definitely watch. How is it described? A special comedy, a special show?
You're
Unique
right.
comedy?
You're right. It was when it was being promoted, when it was first coming out. It was like a new form of comedy, and it really is because it's different. It's not. It doesn't have like a laugh track sitcom type of feel. You're just looking back. It's like a giant photo album.
From the clips I've seen, it's really good.
It is really good.
I'd watch it.
Casey.
Y'all want to know how many... Oh, watch the Wonder Years, Casey, speeches I've gotten. You want to know how many? They're all from you. Yes. And that's about my extent of the experience with the show. Good night, everybody.
Fair enough. Well,
there you had it.
I happen... and there you had it. There you go.
Must be Daniel whenever he got dumped in his youth.
Thanks so much.
Hey, change your plans. We're now doing the Daniel Saletti roast.
There it is. Well, if you ever want to tune in, I actually have it also on DVD. So now let's backtrack. Staying in the 60s just a little bit, we're back to a show that personally I'm unfamiliar with, but I know it's another big show that a lot of people tuned in to watch, and it was set primarily in the 60s, not crossing over to years or anything like that. It's a show called Mad Men. Well, that's a funky theme song. I actually have the theme song, the intro, right next to me here, and it really looks like a James Bond opening, if you ask me. But thoughts on this show? Have we ever? I don't know much about it except for the fact that I think it's a little bit of like a male world versus female world.
It's about I think my mom's a huge fan of this show. I have it on DVD now. My turn. But never really watched it. I think it's about like advertising executives in the 60s, and it's just them in the world, and you got the boss, you got the workers. That's all I know. I've never really watched it. Not really a big fan of it. So
Right.
I only know two things. Well, one thing is that when I first showed my dad the show Breaking Bad, by the way, great show. My parents decided to start Mad Men. They only watched 2 episodes and they stopped because they said it was too depressing compared to Breaking Bad. And the other thing I know, 2 cast members in that show, January Jones and Christina Hendricks, amazing.
There you go.
Christy's got a crush now.
So, just to confirm, it is about advertising people and stuff.
Yeah.
And it takes place in the 60s.
That I knew.
Yeah. I also have pretty much no experience with the show. I really like John Hamm. Great actor. Love him. I also really like Alison Brie, and since we all seem to be confessing celebrity crushes, I had one on her, but that was based on Community, not on this, a show I cannot seem to shut up about.
Oh yeah, that episode where she's in the Santa suit.
Oh God, don't even start.
All right.
Moving on.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of has a mirror feel to a show that was made in the 60s called Bewitched, where Samantha Stevens, the witch, her husband is in advertising, and there kind of is a similar feel to what's going on with this thing. So it definitely has a similarity, and they kind of do a lot of connections from what I know. So that it certainly counts though, because it's set in a different time than it was made. So now we're going to jump into a show that I, again, never seen it, don't know much about it, and it probably has the most vague name out of all the shows we're talking about. It's a show called, what's it called? That show, that 70s show. Okay, so that 70s show, the writers had a really creative time with that title.
It worked though.
I know it has Ashton Kutcher,
Mila Kunis.
Mila Kunis.
Actually, fun fact: they had their first kiss on that show, both of them, and now they're married.
Look at that.
And and it's funny because before that, Ashton Kutcher was married to Demi Moore for a while, and then they got married.
But hey, he
They
can
apparently
say
reconnected.
he can say I met my future wife on that show.
There you go.
Even though it took like 20 years.
You never know where fate takes you, right?
And I mean, it also, whenever I watch him in something else, it always says that guy, isn't that the dad from that 70s show? Kurtwood Smith. Kurtwood Smith.
Oh, so great. Now,
I mean,
every time I watch Star Trek and RoboCop.
So Red Foreman created RoboCop.
Yeah. And
the president
and
of the United Federation.
Dylan is correct. Kurtwood Smith is been in the Star Trek universe twice, famously for portraying the president of the United Federation of Planets in Star Trek VI, but he was also in a couple episodes of Star Trek Voyager or Voyager.
Don't think that's what it means.
I know not. I know. I'm making that up. So Casey, we'll start with you. That 70s show. Seen it, know it, anything about it?
I know it. I walk in on my sister more than a couple times as she's watching it, just because she really likes the show. And back in high school, it was not necessarily a running joke, but we spent a couple of late nights trying to compare ourselves to the characters. It's been on my radar for a while, but like with a lot of these longer shows, I never seem to have the time to just sit down and watch them, or really the motivation either. So it's on my radar, and it seems interesting enough.
Right. Casey, Christy, that 70s show.
Don't know too much about it, just that it's a show about the 70s, and that, I've seen bits and pieces from clips, I even saw a clip of the two kissing just at random, and there's even a rumor that the two hated each other on set.
That happens a lot.
lot.
Dylan.
Haven't seen much about it. All I know is Ashton Kutcher's fame.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's very funny, but...
Absolutely.
Topher Grace was great as Venom.
Oh, that's right. I forgot. He was in that, wasn't he?
But that's all I know.
I don't... as far as I know, it's a fairly big show. I don't know if they have any spin-offs or not. I don't know.
They actually did.
They did.
They tried
That 80s
making one.
show?
Yeah, that 80s show. It was going to star Glenn Howerton of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fame.
Okay.
But the show bombed really bad.
A lot of things do.
If you want good spin-offs, successful spin-offs, just watch Law & Order SVU.
SVU.
I
That's
was
the
just
best
looking at
spin-off.
it for a second.
SVU, absolutely. So, now that you said that 80s show, that actually gives a great transition into our next decade, the 80s. And now there are two shows currently still on that that are set in the 80s and still are going strong. And we'll start out with the one that I don't think that people know about, but it doesn't have a whole bunch of merchandise connected to it. This one, of course, is the Goldbergs. So yes, the Goldbergs, and this is an ABC show that is still currently on, like I said, and it is when I first saw it being promoted to come out, I was like, "You really want to do that? You really think this will work?" And I didn't think, well, this might be a little raunchy, definitely not my alley, but I started watching it, and it actually, surprisingly, very, very good. It is kind of similar to the Wonder Years about it's this family now just set in the 80s, but you have the main kid discussing his past life, looking at his past life, and hearing the older him talk about it and narrate it.
It's a family comedy.
It is. And the narrator is none other than Patton Oswalt.
Really?
Ratatouille,
exactly, among other things.
Yes.
And he basically does the idea that Daniel Stern does for Kevin. He narrates, he tells things that are happening, he talks about his family, and again, another similarity. Who he's talking about is himself, the youngest of 3 children, And the only difference is that actually this show is based on a real family.
Yeah.
Adam Goldberg.
Adam Goldberg.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Whoopi.
Actually, a little fun fact for all you Red Sox fans out there: there was a coach named Ruben Amaro. He actually appears on the show, not as himself, but himself as a younger man.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, it is. I was like, oh my god, so it's a true story.
Yeah.
Before I found out it was actually
Absolutely.
I've seen a few episodes myself. Funny. Just haven't had time to sit down and watch it.
Yeah.
You know me in comedies, especially like family comedies, family dynamic. It's,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's definitely
The only-
a show I'd watch.
The only changes, I think it was a family of 3 boys, and they made one of the boys a sister on the TV show. The other thing
Adaptation. It has to
adaptation,
happen.
yeah.
It has
The other thing I like about it is that it will show it'll show the episode, and then whatever is a major theme or a major thing that happened in the episode, they'll show the real thing that the main kid, Adam Goldberg, caught on tape.
like family movies.
Like a home movie. They'll show the home movie equivalent of that thing. Or if it's about a certain person in Adam's life, they'll have the real person talking to the actor or actress that played them. So it's really, really cool, and I like the idea of doing that.
A biopic.
A biopic, essentially.
Wow, it's,
In a TV form, yeah.
In a TV form, essentially,
that
yeah.
doesn't happen often. It's usually a drama. Or
Yeah.
something, but they actually have a willing to do that. Interesting.
And it's really fun to see all the all the references to the 80s. I like the references personally to not just the 80s, but the setting. It takes place in Philadelphia, so shout out to Philly.
Philadelphia.
There you go. And there are also a lot of different references, movies that come out. Adam is a huge fan of Star Wars and a lot of the Empire Strikes Back merch that comes out. And there's another episode that takes place when the first Michael Keaton Batman film comes out. And the grandfather who lives with them likes the Adam West. And he pronounces it Batman. Batman.
Really?
And Adam says, no, it's Batman. That's what I said, Batman. No. Batman. Listen to me. Batman. No, yeah, Batman. So it's a running joke and on and on and on. And so it's very funny to see that. And it's still going strong. It's past 100 episodes, and I think it will continue to be successful. The only thing is that can you get almost too successful? And the problem with that, the reason I say that is because they do have a spin-off. It's called Schooled. It takes place in the 90s. And it takes the character of one of the older brother's girlfriends, and she teaches at a school where all the characters go to school.
Not bad. I heard it's not that bad.
Is it? Because when I saw the promos, I was even more worried about this than when the Goldbergs came out.
It's
But I
got
don't
a
know.
70 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Well, then I might be totally wrong then, because maybe it'll do well and maybe it'll be a successful
Hey,
spin-off.
the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation wasn't that good, and
True
then it
point.
just got better.
True point. Yeah, and so that definitely it's definitely doing well from what I know, and I hope it does continue to go on. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one more show for you from the 1980s, and it is a big show right now, almost as big as the Goldbergs. When I was talking about merchandising before, this show has so much merchandise connected to it.
Now that Halloween's coming.
Yeah, especially. We talked about it immensely in a previous show last year, but I can't help but talk about it a little bit now.
No.
It is, of course, a show I never thought I'd ever watch, Stranger Things. So yes, Stranger Things. Again, you probably already know about it. If not, you probably heard about most of it when we did our Stranger Things Halloween special last year. Quick overview. It is essentially about a bunch of kids in the middle of the country in Indiana in the 80s. Strange things, wink, happen in their town. They get in contact with a girl they meet who has superpowers of some sort. She has